Triple Shot Mindset.
You know, it was about 10 months ago when we last did our last Triple Shot Mindset
I know.
podcast.
Yeah.
Felt like 5 minutes ago, but it
did.
was 10 months ago.
Yep.
Yeah. Welcome back.
Thank you.
What's your name for people who have forgotten your name?
I'm Amanda
Amanda
Dollinger.
Dollinger.
And you?
Ardavan. Just one name.
Oh.
Just one name.
Kevin.
Also one name.
Kev.
So I see.
Yeah.
I'm the uncool one with the two names.
Yeah. So tell me the topic of today.
The topic of today is that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional.
Optional.
And what do we mean by that? Because that sounds like a good thing you'd put on a meme. But what does it mean?
I'll start with the example.
Please.
Okay. Love my mom. Love my mom. And she's the best mom. But, you know, sometimes you realize that after 35 years of divorce from my dad, she's still choosing to suffer. Now, yes, the first year of divorce was painful, just like it was for me. But then at one point, you got to draw a line in the sand.
Yeah.
And you have to say, and this was conviction and, you know, with a lot of forcefulness, that this is the last day I'm going to suffer. And starting tomorrow, when I wake up, I'm going to look at the sun and say, wow, what a beautiful day, what a beautiful life. I'm going to start creating a better life for myself because I choose not to suffer anymore. So my mom, after 35 years of divorce, I was walking with her at the park, the Commons Park in Irvine. And we were talking about my divorce and how I'm doing afterwards. And I told her I'm doing great. I choose to be friends with my ex. I choose to be, put bitterness away, put all that stuff away, and just focus on the positives. And she started getting teary-eyed, feeling happy for me, I guess, but also feeling sad for herself that she's allowed her suffering to continue. And when I told her, Mom, put the suffering aside, like this is a choice you have every morning. But she's like, I have put it aside, but your dad 35 years ago did this. Your dad 38 years ago did that. And as long as she's in the past, she cannot move forward with her life. And you can see it on her face, on her physical health, emotional health, mental health, that she's aged probably 10 years older than she should be. And my dad, who let everything go, chose not to suffer, chose to be oblivious to this whole thing. Obviously, he looks like a 50-year-old kid with no hair and white, you know, whatever he's hanging on to. So to me, it's like, you have a choice. Yes, go through the pain. I'm not saying numb the pain with drugs and hookers or whatever your choice is. Go through the pain. Just like me, sit at your house for 6 months, just consume uplifting information, cry if you have to, feel bad for a little bit about yourself. But then you tell yourself, I'm going to start building myself up tomorrow. And that's what I did. I said, no more feeling bad for myself, no more ego-driven episodes that I get angry and I get pissed off and I tell myself, I'm going to go slash your tires. That's all just ego speaking and trying to protect you. And so I decided not to do that anymore. And when I told my mom, please stop suffering, she says, I'm not suffering. I swear to God, I'm not suffering. That stupid dad of yours, man. And I think to myself, if she would have had the awareness about how she's bringing up these thoughts and not letting go and choosing to suffer, this is why she has all these physical ailments, heart murmurs, this, that, intestinal issues. It's because that thing has transformed from what could have left her body and consciousness 35 years ago. She's chosen to bury them inside, choose to think about it every day, and choose to let it affect her.
It's part of her identity now.
Yeah.
And that you're right, that emotional wounding, our thought processes, they become stress that then gets implanted in the body.
Yeah.
And that's rough because when you love somebody, especially someone like your mom, you want them to be happy, not just so that they can live happily. I know everyone's like, oh, of course I want the people I love to live happily. But you know what I've realized, guys? You can only love someone as much as they love themselves.
Yeah.
So in reality, I think the reason we want better for our friends and better for our family is so that as they increase their capacity to experience love, we can love them more, talk with them more, share with them more, have more intimacy of the emotional variety, or hey, you know what I'm saying, with them. But in this thing, for those who choose to suffer internally, irrespective of what the circumstance is, I don't think they realize it, but they're cutting off their opportunities for love.
Yeah.
I don't even know if they're aware of it. If they knew they were genuinely, one would hope that they would be like, oh, well, fuck that. I want to feel some good loving of all kinds.
Sure. Yeah. So my, I guess, 3 tips here.
Yeah, please.
Okay, to stop suffering. Stop resisting what is, and have radical acceptance, right? And my acceptance was, yes, our paths were going apart.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Artie has been through a divorce as well, so he can look at his journey and contrast it to Ma's journey.
Yeah. So I looked at myself and her, and I said, okay, she's a good woman.
Her meaning your mom or your ex?
No, my ex.
Okay.
My ex is a good woman. We had a lot of good times together. The 10 years wasn't a wash. Obviously, we had a few differences of opinion, like everyone else does. She saw her trajectory going this way. Mine was more that way, which is no one's fault. When you fall in love at a younger age, you're different people. Yep. When you're older, you become more set on your ways. So for me, it was accepting that this was good love. It was a good relationship at that point. But now it's time for me to step away and her to step away, and for her to chase her dream life and for me to chase my dream life. And yes, even if it was a bad relationship, even if there was abuse or whatever, I chose to stay. Even if it wasn't. But for people who say, well, my husband abused me, whether it's emotionally, whatever, but you chose to stay. You chose to come up with excuses. Oh, I fell down the stairs. Oh, it's okay. He's grumpy at night unless he has his 5 shots of whiskey. So you chose it. So have acceptance of what was.
Without shame.
Without shame.
Yeah, there's no need to shame yourself. I think maybe that's where people get stopped up, because in that particular example, sometimes clinging to victimhood is easier and saying, I didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
But if you accept and own your role in it, and you don't have to shame yourself for that. Yeah. Yes, I made the excuses that I fell down the stairs, or I told people that, I got hit with something or whatever it is. Yeah. You can just express it for what it is. I'm sorry, I had to insert that because the shame piece, I feel like, is mission critical to accepting anything that happens in our life. Yeah.
So just accept what was without your ego getting involved. Because I think a lot of people who have ego, they try to lopsidedly blame the other person or the circumstance, or my dad did this, that's why I'm like this. No, just take responsibility for what is, what your role was, how you showed up. And it was great for when it lasted. I could have ended it sooner in case I was suffering too much, but you didn't. So it is what it is. Let's move on, package it up, put it on the shelf. Yeah. Don't reference it every freaking 2 days because
don't make it your identity necessarily. Yeah. That's the thing about trauma, and this is a little complicated, so maybe we can unpack it for a second. But I noticed that sometimes when people try to take ownership of their traumas, they own it too much to the degree that they begin to identify with it. Well, now I'm an abuse survivor, or now I'm a alcoholic, or now I'm a divorcee, or now I'm a single dad. And I'm not saying throw away all the ownerships and pretend that never happened. I'm just saying there's a sweet spot, I think, from what I've experienced firsthand and observed, between claiming and accepting what happened versus making it your entire identity and personality. Yeah. Because then once again, you won't be able to forget about it. Yeah. So in a way, you're still maybe over magnifying it beyond what it needs to be for you to have a new life, if that's what you want.
Yeah.
some folks don't want a different life. And that's
No,
okay too.
of course, people like to have these little labels attached to them just for them to make themselves feel better. And I'm guilty of that. For the first 2-3 years after my divorce, I used to hashtag my Instagram feed as single dad life. And of all people, my ex-wife one day said, do you want to identify as that? Is that your whatever? Or do you want to live beyond that, beyond that label? And now I only do it to get, extra views on my Instagram. And I've gotten a few dads reach out to me. They DM'd me about, how do you do this? Which is good for business. But as long as I have that identity, single dad, divorcee, whatever, it's not going to allow me to spread my wings and escape that cage I've made for myself.
Yeah. There's perhaps a nuanced difference that every individual must decide for themselves between owning it versus letting it define you.
Yeah.
And there in that gray area, I think, is different for everyone.
Yeah.
When it starts to weigh you down, that's when it may be time to be like, time to revisit this.
Yeah. Kevin had a conversation with one of our clients who was burglarized.
Absolutely. V and Michael, they own a bakery. And a week ago, I got a text from V with a surveillance video of somebody 2:00 in the morning smashing their window, crawling in and grabbing their $10,000 coffee machine at their bakery. The guy also took some cash. And I spoke with her. I said, sorry for what happened. And then she went on to say, and one of my workers is in the hospital. And, we didn't have enough sales last month. And pour me this, pour me that, pour me this, pour me that. Not pour me, but pour.
I thought she's serving a coffee.
No, but this morning I woke up because I heard that she also, every night she gets nosebleeds from the stress. Just like our mom gets stomach pain and all that stuff, the heart murmurs. Physically, it will affect you. So I just wrote her and her boyfriend a few lines of encouragement. I said, let it go. Stop feeling sorry for yourself. Because when you feel sorry for yourself, you cannot look at it as a situation. You just see you as being the victim. I like to see a situation as being a fucked up situation where you can get past it only if you turn the page. A dear friend of mine in Sweden, she looks at life as a river. And I think at first when she said, Kevin, life is a river, I didn't know what the fuck she's talking about. This was a few years ago. And then I realized her perspective is, it happened, now I'm further down. That item that bothered me is behind me. And I just have to look forward. And so that has become my philosophy too, in that whatever happens, come to peace with it.
Accept it, yeah.
Accept it. Don't say, poor me, poor me, poor me, because that keeps you going back to the same place. Just say, you know what? It happened. Next chapter, please.
I'm going to learn a lesson from it. Let me deal with it the best I can without ego involved, without victimhood involved, and let's see where life takes me.
Wow.
So let it go.
That takes enormous maturity. Yeah. Is it fair to say that some people may say that they're ready to do that, but they're not?
No. I know, was it in this podcast or the previous one? The previous one. That we forgot to record. But
40 minutes of glory, guys.
There's this guy at my kids' school who is a dad to two of the kids that my kids are friends with. I'm sure there's a better way of saying that. But anyway, he's a dad of two of the kids at my kids' school. And he went through a divorce recently. And he asked me to go coach him because he found that I do relationship coaching on the side, which, by the way, I do. Okay, I do. So we went out to dinner, and he was telling me how this happened and how he's upset and angry and all that stuff. And yes, he ordered 5 drinks and 3 beers, so 8 total. And he told me that his wife didn't want to be with him because he was a heavy drinker. And he's like, I don't think I am. And he's like, okay, proof's in the pudding, right? He talked about how he doesn't like his kids as much. He wishes they were boys instead of girls.
Wow.
He wishes that he would never have met his wife and all that stuff. So as someone who wants to bring peace, like I brought peace to my post-divorce life, I tried to reason with him. Listen, those kids are a blessing. Boys or girls, a lot of people can't have kids. You have two beautiful twins. So deal with that. Give the next 10 years, 15 years of your life to building a great co-parenting relationship with your ex. Nothing was always awful. Like, I'm sure at least 51% of the time you guys got along well, if not more. And just accept everything that is and just move on. And at the end of the night, he was kind of drunk, obviously, with 8 drinks in him.
Yep.
We were in the parking lot, and he said, man, I got to be honest with you. I wish I would have asked another friend to come with me tonight.
Wow.
And he said, why is that? I mean, that's fine, yeah. And he said, because I was hoping for someone to give me, I guess, push me in the same direction I was going. Just support me in my
I'm guessing he didn't
misery.
use those words, did he?
No.
He probably said someone to listen, make me feel better.
Yeah, and kind of tell me exactly what I want to hear. You told me what I need to do, which is harder for me to do.
Yeah.
So I said, that's fine. So a lot of people who think they need help or they say, I'm going to get help or I'm ready to turn a chapter, they're not.
Yeah.
They have to get to a point that they're so sick of what they're carrying.
Yeah. The old
It
story.
becomes so heavy that they got to start putting it down.
Yeah. That old story, that old pattern, you must have the maturity to truly be tired of it.
Yeah.
And no one can make you tired of it for you. You have to decide, like, you know what? I'm tired of hearing myself define myself as this yet again.
Yeah. And if you put your ego aside, honestly, like I've done this with my mom, which I care about so much, with my brother, with you, with ex-wife, with new people in my life. I put ego aside and I try to see what the situation is. I accept for what it is. Okay, he's a certain way, you're a certain way, she's a certain way. And just let go of all expectations and just let it flow. Whatever flows, I'll go with it, just like that river. So that would be my first thing. I'm going to have to read off my wonderful handwriting.
Yeah, please do.
Is to detach from your mind, to see it as an entity separate from them, to look at your thoughts that are coming in, going out, the fears that are present, our ego that's trying to protect us and always make us right. And if you have the ability to step away from that and observe what's going on, you'll realize how petty some of those thoughts are, how limiting some of those beliefs are, and how they're holding you back from enjoying life again. So my advice to you two and you guys is to understand that you're not your thoughts. Okay. You could have thoughts of fear, thoughts of, this guy sucks. My mom did this, my mom did that, and have all these excuses, but those are just thoughts. And you can start with a clean slate if you really wanted to, by going and getting some therapy, putting an end to these stupid thoughts, having awareness every time these come in, push them out. That's just, my ego trying to protect me. That's my ego trying to make the other person wrong. And just observe it. And if you start observing it and you see them coming in with negative energy, you can just stop it from coming in. You can just tell yourself, I don't want this thought to be part of my consciousness again. I don't want this to derail me from the efforts I've been putting forth to go off in another direction. And so you can observe these thoughts, have awareness as soon as they come in to tell them, nope, get out of here. You don't have a space in my consciousness. And then instead put positive things into it, which is what I do. So if I see, let's say my ex-wife does something after the fact that makes me a little bit pissed off for a moment, instead of thinking, okay, she's doing this to spite me or she's doing this to be this or that, I say, okay, let me just lovingly reply to that text message, lovingly reply to that, request. If she says, oh, our kids, for example, they're cold today, why don't you put a jacket on them? Instead of saying, well, why don't you do it? Da, da, da. I go off for a moment. I think to myself, these thoughts that are going to enter my head that are going to be negative, let me push them out instead of say, you're absolutely right. They're going to be cold today. Let me put another jacket on them. And you can do the same thing when they come home because it's going to be colder in your neck of the woods than here. I just turn it into not giving in, but taking the higher road for my own mental and emotional sanity.
And that is so important because the thoughts are likely what got you in this situation to begin with. The patterns of thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, in the V situation with the bakery. Who else did we bring up? Oh, like the river. Okay. So any one of these individuals who finds himself in a spot, in the case of the river, it's the same water. Looking at life as a river can be very valuable, but if the same sort of things keep happening to you, maybe it's time to get out of that river.
It's more of a whirlpool.
Yeah. Say like, I need new waters. I need a new environment. Your thoughts are your internal environment.
Yeah.
So I love Louise Hay for this. Mm-hmm. She has a video called 101 Power Thoughts, and it's available for free on YouTube. Whoop. And it's basically erasing all of this programming of who you thought you were that got you into the circumstance that interrupted your pattern. Mm. But then if you continue to interrupt your thoughts, you give yourself a chance at a new type of life after that singular incident.
Yeah.
So in the case of the divorce, it's changing the thoughts toward your ex. In the case of a burglary or a string of bad luck, you change your thoughts away from being the perpetual victim. Why does this always happen to me? Why do I always fall into this bad luck? Of course, I'm not surprised this would happen to me. Those thoughts need to go.
Yeah.
And you said something really profound, although I don't know if it was in this recording, which was that you are not your thoughts.
Yeah.
And there we go with identity again. You said something before, also not in this recording, but that's okay, which is that look instead at the problem or the circumstance instead of over-focusing on yourself. Something big about suffering, a theme that I'm seeing here, is that the more you focus on making up a story about yourself, the more you will suffer.
Yeah.
And the less you let go of, the more you let go of that story, which is both the thoughts and it's the problem and how much you're linking that to your identity, the more free you'll be.
Yeah. And part of that is to not only just not let those thoughts come into you and create an identity for you, but speaking about your problems to the wrong people can also have a negative effect. Mm. So if I talk to people who are always victimized and I tell them about my issues, they're going to support a more of a victim mindhood. Oh yeah, women are crazy, ex-wives, you cannot be friends with them. But if I speak to people who are grown and they have had a growth mindset.
Thank you.
Right. And I talk to them about that, they will say, why are you focusing on the negative? Just focus on the positive. What can you do to up yourself to that level? So we have to understand who we talk to about these things and who we surround ourselves and where we let our minds drift to.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people, I'm single, I sit at home. You're single, you sit at home. My mom does sit at home. She tries to live her life, but in the back of her mind, those suffering thoughts and those negative thoughts are always churning, 35 years ago, I'm sitting at home. I'm not thinking about the past. I'm thinking about the future. And of course, we can't control any of them. But I choose to paint a nice picture for myself ahead of me. Oh, this is going to be my partner. This is going to be my business. This is going to be my vacation. This is going to be my kids. But my mom sits down and thinks, I wish this would have happened. Why did I do this? Why didn't I do that? And so it just creates two different types of lives. And so when I sit down with my mom nowadays, yes, I have acceptance about who she is and just letting it be. But observing her thoughts and her emotions tied into victimhood from 35 years ago, it makes me feel bad for her. And it is sad because it's showing on her face, it's showing on her health, it's showing on her emotional and mental health. But at one point you have to say it is what it is. You have to accept it and let it go. And so the same thing with thoughts. If you can observe yourself from a third person perspective and you can see the thoughts coming in, as soon as they're negative, you just push them out. As soon as a friend starts talking to you about how fucked up your ex-wife is, you push them out. And you create this utopia of like positivity and happiness. And eventually that ends your suffering.
Yeah. Something that's been really useful for me is getting off of social media.
Yeah.
Because those are like friends too. Like I don't mean getting off of it entirely, but I mean from an hour or an hour and a half a day down to like 20 minutes a day, which is just responding to friends' DMs, like sending reels back and forth to people who I know, and then that's it.
Yeah.
Because those are voices in our head too.
Yeah.
And social media has become a really toxic kind of place.
It
and
has.
also a big echo chamber. So if just like hanging out with friends who reinforce that you're the victim, I know that we saw this here in the States a lot with the election. Everyone believed the election was going to go the way they believed it was going to go because of what social media was feeding them, which was just reinforcing what they already thought it was going to be anyway. So it wasn't factual or actual. It was just a reflection of whatever the thoughts are going on in your head. Now, is that good or bad? It really depends. Are the thoughts in your head uplifting, positive, expansive, and life building? Well, then your social media might reflect that, and vice versa.
So
you're gonna do the cherry on top now?
Well, here's another tip.
so the first tip was, okay.
Radical acceptance.
Thank you. Detach from your mind.
Yes.
Okay. Third one is find joy in the present. Okay. And by that I mean trust the universe, what it has plans for you. And also let it flow. Let it flow. Don't push back against good things that are going to happen to you. If I'm suffering, I'm going to not want to move through things too fast because that victim identity has created who I am. It's my new reason for being the way I am. And people like my mom, I love her. I don't want to bag on her, but she doesn't let it flow. She doesn't get rid of it, package it up. She doesn't have awareness around her thoughts that are coming in. And therefore, she's just stuck. And every time the universe tries to take her to a better place and she says, no, I want to go back to where I'm comfortable because that victimhood is not my identity. And people who say, oh, I've moved on. He doesn't bother me anymore. I'm in a better place. But they sit down and talk about, oh, I suffered so much. He was so unattentive. He was this, he was that. And just creating a bigger and bigger and bigger narrative for themselves is very dangerous because you cannot move on. And no matter how expansive your mind is, or you claim to have moved on, or you claim to have a better life, if you're still anchored in those negative victim thoughts, you're never going to move on.
Yeah.
You're never going to be happy.
Yeah, it's true. And we can't always know from someone's external life where they are, but I think the closer and the better we do know somebody, the more obvious it becomes.
Yeah.
You hear people saying the same exact words, expressing the same exact thoughts they expressed 1, 2, 3 years ago. And it's like, whoa, you're still on that?
Yeah.
You haven't changed? You haven't change so you don't have to suffer.
Is that your cherry on top?
Yeah.
Okay. Mine. I'll do a comparison. Going back to mama. My last relationship ended after 6 years because the girl I was with, she was cheating on me. I would follow her to see her at the gym, making out with the trainer. I would hear from friends, oh, I just saw your girlfriend dancing at some club while she was supposedly sick at home. Well, in a way, I see my mom's life and mine kind of the same at some point in that we both had partners that were not loyal. I never said shit about my ex-girlfriend after we separated. Because in my mind, okay, next page. To this day, sometimes I text her, I say hello just for a birthday or whatever. My mom, however, took the other route. She can't even be in the same room as my dad for my kid's birthday. And she says, no. She's missing out on all these birthdays and Thanksgivings and holidays because she can't stand my dad. Well, guess what? I couldn't stand her either if my mindset was different. But I chose, shit happens, people are stupid, they do stupid things. I'll turn the page, and you know what? It's a river. Down the river to the next adventure.
Yeah. Some people who choose to be not in that river, they get in that whirlpool. They go around and around, and eventually they go down. They drown in that suffering that they've created for themselves. So move on. Choose that today is the last day you're going to suffer. Choose to put that stuff behind you. And if you have to go seek a therapist, if you have to go read a book, you have to go to a temple and start crying in the corner for 2 hours, let it flow. Let it flow. Because the next day you wake up, all this weight has been lifted off your shoulders. You have expressed whatever else is in the corners of your mind to the therapist. Hopefully you learned a few things about yourself. And then you move on. I mean, life is really, really short if you think about it. I mean, we have to have the awareness that this suffering is not doing any good. It's not going to end well. And we're blocking off energetic frequencies of better things. We're stopping the universe from pushing us to a better place because we're just still identifying with that victimhood. And it's not going to help you. There's always, I think in every relationship, whether it's business relationship or personal relationships, there's no victims. You chose to do more than you were supposed to do, for example. You chose to put up with someone pushing you down the stairs. You chose to make excuses for it. You chose. Now you choose to move on. If you chose that, you're certainly capable of making this other choice to move forward to.